Welcome to The Lead Climb, the podcast where we break down the strategies that drive patient acquisition and growth in behavioral health. Hosted by Growth Sherpa Consulting, we bring you expert insights on digital marketing, admissions, business development, and more, so your treatment center, mental health clinic, or private practice can thrive. Whether you're a CEO, admissions director, or marketing pro, this is where you'll find the tools to scale smarter. Follow us up the mountain. Let's lock in.
Well, cool. Well, appreciate everyone joining us today. Our talk today is basically about technology and treatment. As you can see, there's a couple different tracks today on technology and branding, of course. So we're going to be talking about tech. I'm moderating. My name is Steve Donai. I'm the founder of Growth Sherpa Consulting. A little bit about me, and then I'll let our panelists also talk about themselves. Been in the industry for about 11 years. I've had the pleasure of overseeing somewhere between 15 and 20,000 admissions, 300 million or so of revenue. Founded Growth Sherpa 2 years ago, and what Growth Sherpa is a cross-departmental consulting agency that works with treatment centers. Long story short, over the years I've realized it's never just a one departmental issue with treatment patient acquisition. There's always some sort of crossover, be it MarTech, alumni, admissions, outreach, marketing. And so we created an organization that wants to help treatment centers untangle that mess and clean it up and move forward in a very effective ecosystem of patient acquisition. So I have with me here today Gary from Elevate and Keegan from RxMedia. Gentlemen, tell us a little about you.
Nice. Yeah. My name's Keegan. I'm the founder of RxMedia, and I'm based out in San Francisco. I started RxMedia in 2018 and kind of fell into this space. My very first cold call turned into a client, which turned out to be great. And as I dove into this industry, I learned more, was able to scale my company and work with clients basically across the nation now.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Garth from Elevate.io. We offer 360-degree patient acquisition solutions. So what does that mean? Basically everything from lead generation, making sure those leads doesn't fall through the cracks and that your admissions team converts at the highest rate possible, and we import data from your alumni and billing data, et cetera, to try to optimize the entire patient journey. I've worked in marketing 20 plus years and ran one of the largest Google resellers for about 10 years. I sold it for personal reasons right before COVID. Got aware of this industry, all the challenges we're facing, and just said, let me try to help change those statistics. I took some of that exit money and invested into two boutique luxury treatment facilities. February 2020, so the worst timing in the world. 14 months of travel restrictions to the Dominican and Canada for the facilities, and burned a lot of money. But at the same time, I also just realized, who am I kidding? I'm not a clinician. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not an operator, but I'm great at marketing. Let me instead help the facilities grow their census. And that's what we've been doing for about 3 years for about 40 plus facilities. And hope I can help you some of you guys today.
Awesome. So I know a lot of the sexy talk today is about AI. Don't worry, we'll get there. It's fun stuff. But there's 7,500 treatment centers or so in America, give or take. I think we all could agree that a good 7,000 plus of them probably don't have the foundations of what they need in place for the basic tech stack. So Gary, let's kick it off with you. What would you say you would start off any treatment center with a basic tech stack?
It's a long answer, so I'm going to make it very short. Try to get the fundamentals in place, right? Like we were chatting before, everybody wants the newest Tesla. But it's just about, are we tracking everything? Do you have a CRM in place? Do you have a lead rating system? Are you following up on your opportunities effectively? And do you understand the policy mix? And is your admissions team then handling all these leads? So I would say starting with a few elements like a call tracking provider, a call analytics, call tracking metrics we typically work with, have that integrated into your different marketing channels so that you have attribution in place and you can actually compare apples to apples. That's kind of like the foundation. So you can spend your money where it makes sense and where it makes the most impact. And at the same time, you'll probably see that the more you start scaling your budget, if you don't have the right sales tech stack, martech stack in place in terms of cultivating those leads in this competitive space, you're probably not going to get an ROI from it. So eventually diving into a CRM after you get the fundamentals in place and optimizing that, it's kind of like the foundation. And don't worry about AI and all these sexy tools, because if you don't have SOPs in place and processes, then they're absolutely useless. So you start by getting the one-on-one in place and understanding your attribution across any channel, and then you can optimize from there, I would say.
And Keegan, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Gary, I think hit on like the main points that I'd hit on. I think if I was to go up funnel a little bit, just even with your website, right? Like, what is your website built on? Do you have Google Analytics connected? Do you have Google Search Console, or using Bing Webmaster Tools? And just setting up even your website with the right foundational tools to track your clients, track website behavior, and so on.
Yeah, and I think like y'all, we get brought in a lot of times to make the phone ring, right? Industry average right now is about 30 to 40% of all calls are missed. So we'd like to educate our clients that if you want to have a quick 30 to 40% ROI, just answer the phone. And wild, huh? And that could require the tech, like you said, of call tracking metrics, a call rail or something like that to see when's it being missed and how it's being handled. There's obviously a large drive to CRMs like Salesforce, which are amazing. Again, very, very much more sexy than some of the more industry-friendly models, but yeah, CRMs, of course, getting them aligned, and then EMRs that talk to all of them. So yeah, from our standpoint, I think same thing. Foundational stack will be make sure the phone's being answered, when's it being answered, who's answering it. Then it goes into CRM, and that same information goes to EMR, patient discharges, and then back to CRM, and having the life cycle built in there. If I could wave a magic wand to the industry, I think that would be my first, like, just everyone just please do that, and then we go from there. Keegan, let me ask you this. At this stage, data can be overwhelming, right? I think that in some of my previous roles, I found the average outreach rep can have between 900 and 1,500 qualifying accounts. How do you ensure data cleanliness from the start?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of use the acronym PACS, which stands for Processes, Accountability, and Clarity, right? And it starts with developing the right repeatable processes. So have you guys ever heard of the B-17 bomber or know the story about how this was introduced in the 1930s? No? Okay, well, at the time, one person's on their head. At the time, basically, B-17s were introduced. It was like the most cutting edge airplane. This was right before World War II. But in the test flights, they kept crashing. And what they realized is it was due to pilot error, right? It wasn't the fault of the airplane. And so engineers got together, the pilots got together, and they came up with this revolutionary idea called a checklist. They instituted a checklist, and the B-17 went on to fly millions and millions of miles. And so I think it's just a kind of a cool real-world story that can connect to how powerful just small, repeatable processes can be, and that can lead to big changes, obviously, in engineering and aerospace, and it can also lead to big changes at treatment centers. So that's number one, accountability, right? Someone needs to be held accountable for keeping the CRM updated, for holding other people accountable. And the last is clarity. There's a lot of reports that are going on. There's a lot of data that's coming in. But to be honest, I think for most people here, just focusing on maybe 5 key dashboards or 5 key data points is really all you need to do.
What about you, Gary? Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's on point. When we bring on clients, we like the very first thing is integrating all data sources into dashboards, because I like to say in God we trust, everybody else brings data, right? I don't want to sit and argue with clients if this is good or bad, or this landing page is converting, what's the industry benchmarks. If we have the data, then it's black and white. So getting that foundation in place before you start with the more advanced stuff, that's really effective. The difficulty typically that I've seen, because we started out and everybody reached out, oh, you work with this, and can you make the phone ring, right? It's always that. But the challenge is very often the processes afterwards, when the reps is answering the phone. We have all these like spot checks. We go in and we listen to 5-10% of the calls. We have the CSM do that, and are they following a process? Did they follow it up? What did they rate it in the CRM and the lead? Because at the end of the day, we get fired if we're not driving ROI. And very often I'm just baffled. It's like, what's your insurance, right? That's almost the opening statement. I'm like, what? Like, try to go into tech or software as a service and try to have that sales approach, and you will get slaughtered, right? So a more sophisticated, structured approach to handling your admissions is really key. Like, very often another thing is like also, hey, let me get your insurance. I'm gonna hang up now. Can you send me a photo of your insurance card to the text? I'm like, why are you hanging up? Like, let's collect this information over the phone. Let's try to run a soft verification, which maybe is a good segue to like understanding the prospective patient on the other line and helping them through that journey. Otherwise, they're very motivated in that point of time and reaching out, and then you're letting them go essentially instead of helping them get to the other side and get the help they need. Those things can do a lot. We'll probably mention 10 other things, but maybe we'll get to it.
No, I'll tell you, I had a lived experience of how not to do it. Years ago, I did a Salesforce go live for a client, and probably about 40 outreach reps, dozens of locations, and the very last day before going live, we had to assign the outreach reps to each of the accounts in there. They had 80,000 lines on an Excel spreadsheet. So my day that day was a lot of caffeine and music and just going through and manually having to clean up before the go live. So don't do that. So Keegan, following up on the first section of basic technology, how do you see these tools being used for teams to do more with less?
Yeah, well, I think just implementing basic automations and leveraging technology lets one person be far more effective and far more efficient than ever before, right? At my company personally, right, we use project management software called ClickUp. And with ClickUp, we're basically able to automate our entire workflow internally so that my team can focus on the value add tasks rather than spending time on ensuring that we've set up the right folder, ensuring that the due dates are assigned correctly. And so using tools like this just allows us to work faster, be more efficient, and spend our time in areas that I think drive a higher value to our clientele and to RxMedia as well.
Awesome. So that's phase one, foundation. I think we covered that pretty good in the 10 minutes we had for it. Next section, attribution and reporting dashboards, KPIs. Gary, which KPIs matter most to you? What dashboards are you looking to build right off the bat?
Yeah. Across the board, I would say like cost per lead, cost per VOB, cost per viable VOB, and cost per admit. That's really the only metrics that matter. And if I could choose one of those four, it would be cost per viable VOB. Like hands down. Why is that? We did that in that test we were talking about upstairs with Sandstone and the landing page. It was basically optimizing the performance and telling Google like, okay, we want more of these kind of prospective patients, and we had like a large data set, and we would just pass it back to Google and say, can you find us more of these kind of these consumers, these prospective patients looking for treatment? Now they know a ton of information about us all, right, that we don't know. So they have a vested interest in making sure that they are giving the right answers to the right people at the right time. So making sure that you are actually collecting all that information, and then you leveraging from a patient acquisition standpoint can be extremely valuable. And then also when you're looking at, hey, should I do SEO, social media, recover.com, Google Ads, Microsoft Ads, we do a little bit of BD. What if you can compare those different channels, and then you just have those 4 aligned KPIs and you're comparing the different channels. Now you can start making better decisions to say, what's actually working, and if you have attribution in place, that obviously it's not there's a multi-touch point, multi-device journey. So you're gonna have to look at all the different steps, but you'll start to identify that certain channels is more effective than others.
Right. And Keegan?
I think Gary just hit a home run with that answer. I have nothing else to add. I would do the exact same thing.
Nice. I think the only thing I would add is, as far as CPA being a KPI, I think that's a frontline metric. It's probably the controversial thing that I get in trouble with a lot of clients and prospects. I don't think CPA is a good indicator for a treatment center to look at. And it's one of the first things I get asked at every single new client meeting. I'm sure you guys are saying, it's like, what's CPA for an admit? For executive teams, I really look at gross percentage of revenue and really try to tailor it to that one. So that, I think, would be a KPI metric for an executive leader to say, what percentage of gross revenue do you budget or attribute to spend to acquire said gross revenue? The CPA, I think you take from that and then you push down to frontline managers, say admissions directors or outreach managers, say this is your target. But for me, a KPI of a CPA is something I think we need to get away from as an industry, because it's apples to oranges depending on your programs. I mean, we're talking one program now that's a minimum length of stay 7 months. And I guarantee their CPA is going to look wildly different than a 5-day detox.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like this one. Keegan, how have you used reporting tools to reallocate budget or make marketing calls?
Yeah, so you know, I have a kind of a good story for this with a detox center. This detox center did not have a lot of these foundational tools set up, like a CRM or any type of lead tracking or attribution modeling. But they were spending about $25,000 a month in Google Ads, which a lot of us here are probably like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Well, we ended up setting up their CRM through HubSpot, setting up the proper lead tracking, and what we found out was, hey, this Google ad spend is not driving viable leads. We ended up turning off their ad spend. We did not see a drop in admits, and the client ended up saving several $100,000 a year. And then with that money, obviously he's way happier and he can do a lot with it, but they can use that money to allocate to other sources. So that's just how using a dashboard can drive a real tangible value and get buy-in really quick from clients.
I like that one. We've had some similar ones where you turn off paid spend and they are scared out of their minds, but then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And look at this. Admissions teams, like, finally we can talk to someone for more than 5 seconds is amazing. It's wild how that works. Gary, what about your experiences with that?
I typically take every prospect through an ROI calculator we built, because I want to make sure that they're not just like, I'm out of network California, can you hit me 10,000? I was like, okay, time out, right? Just is it realistic, and do they understand all the different metrics throughout the acquisition process? If they're not fully aware of all those metrics and you don't know the lead conversion rate and your cost per lead, your cost per BOB, then you don't have the right data. So it really starts with that, and then I think most channels make sense if you have the right messaging, you have the right landing page structure. I mean, you're not shooting yourself in the foot, but there's always diminishing returns on any channel. I would say at some point you can't just scale Google, and I mean I manage hundreds of millions of dollars on Google, but I'm publisher agnostic. I always say I don't care if you spend your money in recovery or Google or Microsoft, wherever you get the biggest bang for the buck. And there is going to be diminishing returns with every channel. So it's about measuring that and understanding when do you make those shifts. There's also seasonality. Like I always like to say, like you go into Q4, that's brutal from a Google ad standpoint, right? But hey, let's swift it over to recover.com, because there's not that Googlephlation in CPC increase and challenges that you might get a better bang for your buck in that seasonality. So just having that data at your fingertips is very, very relevant. And then there's a lot of places that will take your money, so that's not a problem. It's just where to spend them.
Yeah. And then the last question on this part, and I was actually asked this yesterday, just in conversation, is how do you get the team to actually use the data? So you set up the CRM, you set up call tracking metrics, and then what?
Yeah.
So I'll just throw it out there to y'all.
Yeah, for me, it starts the top down. If leadership's not bought in, then the rest of the team's not going to be bought in. And the way you get leadership bought in is by explaining the why behind the action, right? So if you can show the why, get leadership bought in, and then also show the why to the rest of the team, I think you'll get a greater buy-in. And then if you can connect it to a dollar amount, like in that example earlier, it's going to drive really quick results and buy-in. But that'll be my short answer.
Amen to that. The dollar amount, I think, for executive leadership in particular, can really see what happens. Yeah.
I've seen a lot that you explain to leadership, but they sign up with you, and hey, I really love these metrics and dashboard. This is great. Let's go, Gary. But then you're dealing with the admissions team afterwards, and then now you got to pitch them. Why should you have to follow this tedious system about rating every lead, right? I don't have time for this. I'm back to back and so forth. But then I like to flip it and say, like, listen, how can we drive qualified opportunities to you at a higher rate if you're not telling us what's working, what's not. So encouraging them, like getting buy-in across the entire organization is even more important to get, you know, the boots on the ground and the admissions team and so forth to start following your process, because then you know, executives will take credit for it, but it's actually the working with the admissions team that really works. And the second thing I usually highlight is, you know, just like you always say, take a train the trainer approach, or find your internal champion. Especially with AI now, right? So a lot of people use AI the wrong way. They, like we talked about upstairs, or it was mentioned during one of the sessions about, like, people are Google and so forth doesn't like plagiarism, right? They want authenticity. There's an expression: expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness. They don't want to, like, put up more content that's basically just replicated from somebody else. So they're trying to promote authenticity, subject matter experts, thought leaders, etc. So look at your content and see if your agency is just using ChatGPT and AI, and then hit down on that. But where you can use AI and ChatGPT, etc., what we do is, like, create, I call it the voice of Elevate. So, like, I know our unique selling proposition. I know how, you know, what are the most effective follow-up emails, text messages, how do I get people to convert at the highest rate? Take your best performing admissions rep and you take that and you create the voice of your facility. And now you take that collateral, all these templated messages that is not ChatGPT, but actually you feeding it with your information, and now you leverage it across the board. That's really, really effective to convert more leads into opportunities and admits.
You know, I think the last thing I'd add on this one, from an outreach and large team perspective, is boil the frog when possible. I've done a lot of go-lives with outreach teams of 20, 30, 40 people plus, and it's really fun on our side to say, look at this cool tool we can build you. Look, and the executives get all pumped up about, let's build this awesome CRM, let's build this awesome tech tool, and then you get in front of all these people. And outreach in particular, I've always said outreach reps tend to have two types of energy, laser beams or nuclear explosions. And so there's no wrong energy. I love both of them. I definitely know which side of that train I'm on, but the nuclear explosion reps can't take all these tools and then run with it. It's overwhelming, and then they just drop the ball. They want to even mess with it. So if you can boil the frog and introduce growth in your tech stack and tools, and over time that gives them the feeling of accomplishment and little wins, they'll get buy-in and they'll start working more and more with it. Or you could just go hard like one of my bosses did earlier in my career. I was actually really bad at entering into Salesforce. And he told me, Steve, you get a salary. Part of your salary is using Salesforce. I can cut that part of your salary out. And guess who uses Salesforce now? So Section 5, I really want to spend a moment on this. I think this is actually a really sweet spot for most treatment centers. We have the foundational stuff. We have the reporting stuff. The AI will come later. Automation, I think, is really an opportunity where you can leverage a lot of economies of scale with your tech tools. So campaigns, workflows. Gentlemen, this is going after both of you guys. What's one automation in your org or clients' organizations that's made a real difference?
I'll let you spearhead this one.
I would go back to attribution and lead rating, and just automating that so it becomes, whether if you're answering the phone, it sounds more difficult than that, but so the lead comes in and it's tagged with this marketing source and into CTM, but then the lead is imported into your CRM, and then you're updating the stage, and then you're moving it into a clinical assessment, or we have to run so that updating of the stages, making sure that that's attributed accordingly in your marketing data attribution, that's difficult, but the key. So getting that automation in place, I think that's where you start, because one of the reasons I went into this was basically, like, there was I learned that all these call centers and lead aggregators, they're so good at marketing, but they have now focus on patient outcomes, right? And you've got a lot of good facilities with the best intentions, and they're just not good at marketing. I said, that's an unfair advantage. But they master that, right? So I would say that's one of the most important things, because then you're driving census, and then you can expand. You will have the advantage of having better patient outcomes. You'll have great reviews. You'll have alumni of referrals that's promoting your program, but you'll never get to that state unless you have the first part in place.
Yeah. building on that, for my own internal time, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's really a lot of automation around our internal workflows. So when a client does sign the contract and move forward, what happens internally to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. I think for our clients' perspective, I think lead nurturing automations are just commonplace and really something that's so easy to set up and do that if you're not doing it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And so I think that's just a real easy one that most treatment centers and most businesses should be able to take advantage of right away.
And there's two that I really dig. One I call coffee reports. So taking the KPIs reports, the important information that we discussed earlier, and sending a morning email to everyone who needs to have it at 5 a.m. So over your morning coffee, you get caught up on the details from the day before. It's forced upon them in their inbox at a time when we're all scrolling something while waking up and getting our day going. So I like coffee report automation. The other thing, and I think this is wildly interesting about our industry, is once a patient in admissions is labeled closed lost, or however that nomenclature is, maybe some programs 6 months later will give them a call back, see how they're doing. But you've spent money on this lead one way or another. This person met medical, clinical, financial, all these needs to go to your interest, desire, and never talk to them again. So automating some sort of drip campaign with content creation, with personas that you can have pretty customized paths to take for these folks, re-engages people who need help, which is why I got in this line of work anyways, to help those in need, and I think it's a really awesome way of doing it. But two, from a marketing dollar spend, you're casting a backstop against the spend you've already made, which could then eventually reduce spend later. So I love that automation as well. On that note, how can automation, Gary, this is going to go to you to start. How can automation help small teams scale without losing the human touch?
Well, I think if you're just looking at your admissions team, and typically, unless you're a large facility with hundreds of beds, then typically they're wearing multiple hats, right? And they got a life, and they're also doing a little bit of BD on the side. So making sure that they can follow up on those close lost opportunities, or the ones who just went, MIA, not that that they were motivated and reached out and had the intent to move into treatment and everything, and then something happened and they're not ready. An automation to follow up on them consistently, extremely effective, because you can't force people to step into recovery. I'm preaching to the choir here, obviously, but you can stay on top of them. And we can't do retargeting in this industry, so you can't leverage that. For them to remember your brand, and we just spoke about brand significance and all that, what are the odds that they remember you? So collecting that information on the front end on the landing page, and then automating a sequence. And I would say most folks is not necessarily open or embracing a newsletter that will go into your spam or so forth, but a text message where you it's very human centric, where you just write short messages. Hey, just checking in. We spoke. How are you? And then you're not going to get any responses for 17 messages, but all of a sudden when they're ready, a few is going to reply, and that's sometimes what can do the difference in Q4, where it's challenging to have that kind of automation.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're not texting, hey, you up?
Yeah.
Keegan, this one's for you. Is this a stage where you can utilize technology to empower small, agile teams? And if so, what tools would you recommend implementing to help them scale with that?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think actually if you kind of go back to the question you just asked, these tools allow you to amplify the human touch, right? They're not actually automation doesn't take away from the human touch. It amplifies the human touch because it gives you more time to focus on the human-to-human sales, the human-to-human contact, and the high-value props. So automation does absolutely help you amplify the human touch, and I think it's from a tool perspective, one tool I find really cool right now is Apollo CRM, and in this industry we talk a lot about how much business is driven through B2B connections, and Apollo CRM is kind of a newer CRM, but it uses automation, unique sequencing involving LinkedIn, calls, text, email to allow a single sales rep to have far more actions, far more touch points, and probably be, in my opinion, like 2 or 3 times more effective than before. And so that's just a great example of a tool that I think could be leveraged in this industry that's currently not, from almost everyone I've spoke to. And yeah, I think definitely check it out if you haven't. And I don't work for them either.
All right, so what horror stories do we have from automation? What automation attempts have you had, or things you've implemented that didn't turn out well, and how did you recover? How did the company move forward?
Get your data right first, right? Yeah. Have you ever got those emails where it said, hi, insert name? Mm-hmm. Does not work, right? So you get your database and your data correct, and then automation works next. Yeah.
Has anyone ever put their Outlook and tied it into their CRM? I've done that before. So in the email, it automatically tracks the outbound email. It worked great at an organization I was at, except the CEO also wanted to be part of the CRM and have his email in there, and to which all of his emails were then logged in the CRM. And it could have gotten bad. It was caught early enough, but that was automation where if you had the right privileges, you could very quickly see every email going in and out from people that shouldn't have that. So be careful as you guys are doing that. Make sure that you are putting those there. And then another one, since we're talking about technology, years ago, there was a rep who had their laptop in their car and it was stolen. And they didn't have the right technology on there to block or shut down the laptop, right? So the organization had to write the letters that your information potentially could have been breached. And while they're stuffing the letters of the tens of thousands of people that were in that, 2 letters accidentally stuck together and went in the envelopes, and they then were now one off with different names, and they had to do it all over again. Right. So those are 2 horror stories that I've seen from the years, and don't want to be part of that stuff. Yeah. I guess we'll ask one more on the automation side. What's one automation that, if you could wave a magic wand and put it in every treatment center, what would it be?
If I could wave, I'll go real quick. Just one really, really simple one is just asking for reviews, right? Mm-hmm. It's easy, it's super simple, and it has like 3 high-value impacts, right? Number 1, it's going to help with your conversion rates. People read reviews, they pay attention to them. Number 2, it's going to help with your SEO. And number 3, you can use it in marketing across the board. So it's a really easy one that drives a lot of value.
Amen. We even take it to that extent. That's on point. Probably it's like clear. You can just Google how does Google Business Reviews impact local SEO, and you'll get an AI summary from Google on how important it is. We even took it to that extreme that when I wanted to open up my own facility, I created this planner. It's called the Goals, Grit, and Greatness Planner, right? And after I was like, why the heck did I do that? So I was like, let me white label these for our patients instead. And then I put the QR code. So I trained the admissions team to say, like, here's a planner. It's a 6-month planner. It's your patient discharge planner. I also call it a referral generator. So you give it to your prospective referral partners, hand it out so you're top of mind. And it's where you're practicing gratitude and setting the right intentions and establishing healthy habits. I didn't come up. I just standed on the shoulders of giants to create those healthy habits, what I saw worked. But putting that alumni or that GBP, when you then people discharge, I call it the honeymoon phase, right? Everybody's great there. That's when you hand it out, right? The planner. It's also a branding. And then you say, like, it would mean the world to me if you can just takes 2 seconds, like Clint was talking about, like, just let me send you the link right now, but you hand out the plan. It's physical. They feel it. The reciprocity, they have the obligation to, hey, I want to give you a review. And then set a KPI, right? So you say, like, I always say, like, you got to get at least 20 to 25% of your discharges as a positive review. And people will say, like, you're crazy, Gary, right? But I mean, if you put that focus and you have as an executive KPI, it will happen. Yeah. The second thing I would say, if I had a magic wand, I really don't, this whole reciprocal partnerships, I think it's good in many extents, but I think it's over, I don't know what the right word for it. I'd say automation on non-reciprocal partnerships, right? Most BD reps don't want to do that. We created like a BD solution, a platform built on Salesforce, where we do the appointment setting. We contact EAP, psychiatrists, psychologists, drug counselors, interventionists, all these like the low end of the funnel, and book meetings with them. And I would say focus on that kind of automation. How do you build a database of these folks that when they refer, it's unique, it's non-reciprocal, they're just trying to put their patient into the best levels of care, and there's nothing expected in exchange. So I would say that would be my number 2, to focus on that for the sake of the industry.
Yes. And to wrap up on this, I like that idea. I also would say is if you have a strong BD presence in your growth plan, have a notification when an account goes stale. If they haven't referred in 91 days, ping the email box, have the information, automated text. Don't let accounts that are good not get called on and get worked with in a relationship accidentally die because people got busy, right? It's easy. And again, the average rep has 900 to 1,500 accounts. No human can navigate that, so you need a reminder. Okay, AI, I got the 10-minute mark, so we have AI in the last 9.5 of it. Gentlemen, are you using AI tools today? And if so, where are you seeing the most traction?
Yeah, as a digital marketer, I mean, I'm using AI basically in every aspect of my business, right? Whether it's from help creating content, whether it's from help dicing up videos, whether it's taking our blogs and then transcribing our blogs or turning our blogs into audio recordings using 11 Labs. Yeah, for me, AI is basically a part of my life on from top down every single day. I'm using it.
Yeah, I think personally, I wish we could pull the plug, like, cause that's just like me, non-professional. I think like we're digging our grave here, but I'll leave that to another conversation. But yes, I leverage the hell out of AI because that's, I think, the only companies, including facilities, that will thrive in 5 years. We use it like not for content creation. Again, that's a huge no, like huge, right? You won't get anywhere doing that. But for example, like I mentioned, the voice of Elevate or the voice of XYZ facility, to taking all these best practices, your best processes, and implementing, applying that across your tech stack, very, very effective. And we obviously practice what we preach. So.
Yeah. And upstairs, there's a lot of great tools and tips and tricks about AI. But is there a part of AI you're not willing to touch for your clients right now? I mentioned blogs, of course, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think any kind of mass deployment, you're probably asking for trouble, right? Outside of that, at least in my I actually maybe the opposite, where I'm quite pro AI and think there's lots of incredible things that will happen in the AI space. And even when it comes to image generation, like I truly believe in the next year or so, none of you guys may be able to tell a difference, right? Like Vogue's launching their own AI model campaigns. So you see it with the major companies around the world with major budgets, and I think we're going to see it trickle down into our industry too. So I truly believe in the future of AI and where it's going. But no, I truly, outside of maybe handling medical information, outside of that, I'm open to touch and try AI on everything.
Excellent. And Gary, anything else for you other than blog writing?
We're testing a lot of different tools with, like even the further guys have but also like I'm working with 2-3 other vendors that have like AI admissions reps, and I'm not open to that yet. I think there's too much at stake that I know AI can give the wrong advice, and that's a huge risk, right? It's a person's life at stake. So like 50% of me says it's going to go that way. Embrace it, Gary, go with it. But another part of me thinks that I think people is going to value buying or purchasing or getting advice from a real person, right? It's like, okay, that's not an agenda. It's not reading me. So I'm split decided, but at the current point, I don't want to take on those kind of technologies, even though it's hard to not accept it at times when you see 40% missed calls and you're like, okay, then let's just plug in this agent, right? At least they'll not have missed calls. But then there's also behavioral health answering services you can use for that. They're just not always the best in the world, some of them. So that's why it's, I go back and forth. But at current point, I'm not convinced that there's no risk associated with it.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat, and I think for a couple of reasons. I haven't been convinced yet about, I would call it like AI first interaction with a client tools, be it chat or call or text. They will get there. I have no doubt they'll get there, and I'm sure that some things are really close. I just haven't seen them yet. But I don't want to be the agency that has our clients utilize one of these tools and a patient calls in at a critical moment and doesn't make another phone call, right? Doesn't make it to the next moment. And because that tool wasn't ready for that sort of severity of the calls, and I've been on these calls over the years, and you hear them, and hearing some of the things, it's hard to imagine a computer getting it now. I think we'll get there, but I don't think we're there yet as far as saying this is something that that we want to recommend to our clients. With that said, I am the most optimistic person. I cannot wait to be convinced otherwise. I cannot wait to hear that tool, because I also want the tools to be able to answer the phone when someone calls in needing that help. So I think it's kind of a dual-edged sword there. I'm a very time-conscious human being, so I think we have 5 minutes left.
I'm going to give you 5 because you started late.
Oh, you call me late.
Yeah.
So we have 5. We can hammer out a couple more questions, but why don't we turn it over?
I'm curious, a statistic that you mentioned, that 30 to 40% of calls go unanswered. Do you have a sense on like what the genesis of that is? Is it a staffing and logistics issue? Is it that the calls of the people, calls that people who are supposed to be taking the calls are taking longer to actually, work with the people that are already on the phone, so to speak? Mm-hmm. Is it a lack of automation? I'm curious in sort of how that statistic manifests in real life.
It sounds very nebulous. I think there is first a deprioritization of that part of the funnel. This part of the funnel that we all do is the exciting ones. We see the numbers go up. We see all these great things happen, and it's expensive. So it gets prioritized, I think, less at this moment. Although the people answering these phones, they're salespeople, clinicians, air traffic control, triage. They have so many different responsibilities. So I think there is a part of a just lack of attention. There's probably a lack of technology. We've noticed a lot of missing calls because the technology was not rolling over properly, or it might have taken 20 seconds to get to an agent because the technology was set up incorrectly, and I'm not waiting 20 seconds anymore. I mean, that's too much time. And then I think the other thing too is if agencies aren't really focused on time fencing and do other things to balance out the call volume with the staffing model, that also could definitely occur. And finally, the last thing probably is the 8 to 5 admissions model doesn't necessarily mirror our disease state. Addiction's not an 8 to 5 disease state. So I think that we need to be true in meeting our patients where we are. So when I see treatment centers say we meet our patients where they are, but at 3 a.m, they're not there, I find that as a big separation. No. David.
Not really questions, just a statement about reviews. So a barrier a lot of times for reviews is that people don't want to put their Google name out there. So recovery.com and other third-party platforms have anonymous reviews as an option. So that should be part of that automation. Is if you don't want to put your name out there, you can leave a review on recovery.com, and that is also very beneficial. So a plug.
Maybe we'll automate the recovery.com new testimonial video piece too, which would be great.
I like that.
Where can we connect with someone from recovery.com?
My question is for Gary. You mentioned the dashboard that you have for each of your clients. What technology are you using for the dashboard? And then how easy is it to integrate with all these different systems? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see is that everyone uses so many different tools, and of course Post-it notes and Google Sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of folks that come like, hey Gary, I want to become a client. I love your dashboards. Like, please don't sign up because of our dashboard. They're not proprietary. We're not a dashboard builder. There's a ton of different platforms out there. My old agency, we had 5,000 advertisers, so I had a lot of purchasing power. The economies of scale I would negotiate. So, there's NinjaCat, TapClicks, Tableau, agency analytics. There's a ton of different. They all do the same, and at the same time, it's more about integrating the right sources and then configuring the dashboards to tell the right story. Because I don't know if you can relate to that, but I've seen a lot of reports and agencies share or clients share, and this is basically like what's the most important information? There's like 100 different numbers and metrics. Like, how am I supposed to make a decision out of that? So really distilling in terms of like, what are the KPIs that matter? What are the metrics that will move the needle? And then have that in the visual representation so we can easily look at it on a phone, preferably. So that's basically what we architected, but you can do that with pretty much any platform, I would say.
What's your go-to, like when you're monitoring, are you looking at it daily, weekly? You know, there's something to be said about like, you want to notice things if cost per lead is going up and you want to be nimble and jump on it. But there's also something to be said about, well, there's seasonality and you take a step back, and if you look at Q1, well, overall Q1 looked great, even if this 1 week looked a little rough. Do you have a go-to like time frame that you're looking at?
You pretty much got to look at it both daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly to answer your question. Why? Because like if you do Google Ads, there's so many fraudulent click software, bots, etc. And every time you make a move, you're basically capturing market share from your competitor, and you can rest assured they're going to be making moves. So you can't just sleep on your victory. Hey, now it's going good. I also hear a lot of agencies, and that was one of the reasons why I said, okay, let me not try to be a facility, but work with facilities instead with my own agency. It was like, it takes 12 months and we can't look at it, we gotta look at it quarterly. Like, I mean, that's not entirely accurate, right? That's typically that they're just, what do you call it? Like they're trying to extend like the probability of it working. You wanna take immediate actions, weekly, daily, if you slip down in positions, or your copy is not effective, or somebody's bidding on your brand. I mean, you got to look at all those factors. But I think it makes sense to look at it year over year. So you're comparing, your last January with last January, instead of comparing like January versus December. There's going to be a mild difference. And at the same time, understanding all the regulatory changes and policy impacts that, you can't always compare like 2 years ago in December with now. Like the market has just changed. So I wish I could give you a magic bullet, but you got to look at all the factors.
Yeah, I say too on top of it, comparing channels along with that. So even if marketing performance, the top end KPIs aren't necessarily the same week over week, but if admissions are going up or down, there's also things like average time till the phone gets answered, average talk time. So is it the humans answering it? Is it the KPIs on the front end of the digital? Are you outbound referring those to generate more inbound leads? So are the near misses? So I think the ecosystem too is like, there's information overload, so dashboards are definitely a win, but yeah, it's a lot. Time for one more?
I had a quick question and a comment. I did have to take my car to the shop earlier this week, and when I called, I spoke to an AI person at the dealership, and it was quite delightful. Actually talking to the person at the dealership, and I was shocked.
They're pretty good now.
But I was wondering, when you're talking, I like hearing about all the technology and the automation, but when you're rolling out new systems, do you recommend doing like a beta test with like a subset of individuals? I've rolled out a lot of stuff over the years, and sometimes it's been very challenging to get buy-in. Or one department buys in, one doesn't, and it's a shit show. How do you typically go about that when you have like a multi-pronged kind of rollout that's going to require data input or use from more than one kind of stakeholder or department?
It's a great question. I think like most technologies or systems, CRMs don't work unless the users adopt them, and garbage in, garbage out, right? So I mean, you really want to get buy-in. So I think it's almost like political lobbying, almost like before you do it, you gotta, are you on the team, and here's a commission bonus, I need you to be my advocates for this, and executive. So like when we come out, and you will get surprised when you interview the executive, the CEO, and the VP of admissions, and the BD guy, and like in terms of how the metrics and KPIs are different. So getting that alignment first and foremost, and then saying, okay, how can this help across the board, and then selecting a little team of champions, find that internal advocate that you're going to train on it. That's key for any systems rollout. You're right on point. That's why most systems implementations fail, I think, right? It hasn't been thought through.
in a different life, I was at a startup and we were scaling our sales team from like basically 50 to 400 across the nation. And when we were rolling out pretty large initiatives, we'd actually time it around like executive offsites or executive outings. So we'd fly in all management, so all the sales managers would be there, and that's at the time where we introduce new initiatives rather than just trying to throw it out to them, randomly throughout the year. So we'd time these when everyone's kind of bought in, when everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid, when everyone's feeling more confident, and we'd see better buy-in and adoption. And we didn't do it; it didn't work very well.
And there's two people I always like to find when I'm doing the go lives. I like to find the person on the outreach team in particular that everyone likes and follows, and then the person who would be the hardest person to convince to use that product. You get both their buy-in, because people in the outreach team knows my man over here is not going to use technology, and they come to the meeting like, I've been using this, is amazing. Those two people listen. I always try to find those two, win those two over, and then they are my people training the team, and that tends to do pretty well.
And then a good question is also, how many technologies do you have? Do you understand your tech stack? Like the average, just on the sales marketing side is, 10, 20, but most companies have 60 to 80 technologies. So is this one new technology going to make it easier? Is it going to embed the different technologies? Are they integrated? Is it going to enhance workflows? That's really big buy-in. So it's like, what's in it for me? You can use a tool, I think it's called Productive, to implement and then measure across the adoption across your organization, and you'll see that, holy shit, nobody's using this fucking tool. Like, it's right? So just find the right tools that is like, okay, how does this actually help? And it's an overlap with other software, and how can we have people not be in 8 different tabs when they're like working, and try to have it in one system? That's key.
Gentlemen, thanks so much. Y'all, thanks so much for coming. We have 30-minute break now. Food upstairs. I was told to say that. Enjoy.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Lead Climb. We hope you picked up some valuable insights to help optimize your patient acquisition and grow your behavioral health organization. If you found today's discussion helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your network. And if you're looking for expert guidance in digital marketing, admissions, business development, or any other piece of the patient acquisition puzzle, Growth Sherpa Consulting is here to help. Visit us at www.growthsherpaconsulting.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The Lead Climb.